With this budget, our fleet will be larger, and our sea services will be much more effective, potent, and lethal than they are today, because they'll be equipped with the weapons and the advanced capabilities that they will need to deter any aggressor and make any aggressor who isn't deterred very much regret their decision to take on the United States. Now, in order to maintain that lethality and capability ahead of all others in what is, after all, a competitive world, we need to continue to invest in innovation, to think outside of our five-sided box. That's why one of my top priorities as Secretary of Defense is to build, and in some cases to rebuild, the bridges between the Pentagon and the innovative business community that for decades has buttressed one of America's greatest strengths, namely superior technology. And as I'm building bridges from the DoD side, I know there are those in the private sector, including members of the Navy League represented here today, who are building from the other, and we appreciate that. Our men and women in uniform operate in an increasingly competitive and changing world, particularly when it comes to technology. And when I began my career, most technology of consequence originated in America. And much of that was sponsored by the government, particularly by the Department of Defense. Now today, we're still major sponsors, but much more technology is commercial. And the technology base is global. Indeed, technologies once possessed by only the most formidable militaries have now come into the hands of previously less capable militaries, and even non-state actors. And meanwhile, nations like Russia and China are modernizing their militaries to try to close the technology gap. So to stay ahead of those challenges, to stay the best, and to keep our edge, we're investing aggressively in high-end innovation and to enhance our own asymmetric and hybrid capabilities. For example, we're investing a combined total of $34 billion across the cyber, electronic warfare, and space domains in FY17 alone. We're building fast, resilient microdrones that can be kicked out the back of a fighter jet moving at Mach 0.9 and fly through heavy winds. We're developing an arsenal plane, which will function as a very large airborne magazine with different conventional payloads, networked to fifth-generation aircraft that act as forward sensors and targeting nodes. And for the Navy, we're working on autonomous self-driving boats, which can network together to do all sorts of missions, from fleet defense to close-in surveillance, including around an island, real or artificial, without putting our sailors at risk. These are just a few of many examples. Overall, our budget invests nearly $72 billion in R&D. To give you a little context, that's more than double what Apple, Intel, and Google spent on R&D last year combined. That includes $12.5 billion specifically invested in science and technology to support groundbreaking work happening in the military services in our dozens of DoD labs and engineering centers across the country, and at DARPA to develop and advance disruptive technologies and capabilities in areas like undersea systems, hypersonics, electronic warfare, big data analytics, advanced materials, energy and propulsion, robotics, autonomy, and advanced sensing and computing. And at the same time, we're also investing in further partnerships with our nation's innovative private sector and technology communities in places like Boston, Silicon Valley, Austin, Seattle, Northern Virginia, and America's many, many other hubs of globally unrivaled innovation. Last week, I visited and announced enhancements to a path-breaking innovation hub that we launched in Silicon Valley. I called the Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, or DIUX, which is essentially an outpost of us, of the Pentagon on the West Coast, to help broaden the range of great companies that we work with. We've launched and funded manufacturing innovation institutes across the country to advance emerging technologies like flexible hybrid electronics, which will make it possible to seamlessly print lightweight, flexible structural integrity sensors right onto the surface of ships and aircraft. Or revolutionary textiles, which combine fibers and yarns with things like circuits and LEDs, solar cells, electronic sensors, and other capabilities to create fabrics that can see and hear and sense and communicate, store energy, regulate temperature, monitor health, change color, much more.